Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Insights Tech Showcase. Before I dive in, I just want to remind you about a few things. First, we've got that chat box. Feel free to drop your LinkedIn or let us know where you're tuning in from. And then, of course, we have that Q&A box. If you have any questions, drop them there and we'll get to them at the end. And so today, to kick off the AI-powered data analysis part one, Lenny, I will hand it on over to you.
Thanks, Bridget, and hi, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Insights Tech Showcase. And surprise, surprise, it's an AI topic. Can you imagine? We haven't touched on this one yet, at least not specifically. So we're going to talk about AI-powered data analysis, and this is such a big topic that this is part one. There will be a part two, but let's dive in. So. As always, apologies for the dense slides. You'll get a copy of these. These are kind of reference materials, but say anything else. And just a timeline of major developments. Here's the short version, right? We think, oh, AI is new. Nope, it's not. In the early 1950s and 1960s was the early development of machine learning, algorithms, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, in the 70s and 80s, as hardware started to catch up, then we started to see the emergence of being able to process more data and more information utilizing some of those ideas around algorithms. In the 90s and 2000s, we entered into the era of adoption. And we've seen that just grow across almost all technologies that we utilize, all software platforms. The early 2000s, of course, with the advent of online, boom, there was so much more data. So there was a heck of a lot more to analyze. And that demand drove the development of more supply, things like neural networks, which is kind of the foundational component of LLMs. We saw develop large-scale solutions, and of course, where we are now, still in the early stage, but it is the widespread adoption of AI and machine learning across virtually every piece of software that you can imagine, some that are very specific towards analysis of data from the way we think about it in the research space, some that are much broader. We're seeing the integration of that across all the tools that we utilize. And it's kind of a brave new world in how AI is unlocking more efficiencies and greater scale across all the data that we analyze. So that's what the past 50, 60 years looks like. And now we've got some real data that we can share here. And this is from the GRIT report, where we asked respondents in the spring of this year. This is the Insights Practice report on the top 3 tasks that are being automated with AI. You're seeing this across the segments that we look at. So across the top, traditional research organization buyers, non-traditional research organization buyers, meaning folks that sit outside of the research organization, generally more analytically inclined, full service research, field services, qual, strategic consultancies, tech, and data analytics. So those are our segments. And these were the top 3 that you can see. Of course, text data analysis, that was the low-hanging fruit, right? That was something that we were already working on in text analytics. Here came AI. The ability to synthesize and analyze that information at scale was the first use case, and you can see pretty widespread adoption across the board, although still a little bit in the latency in field services and qualitative research. I expect to see that grow. Image and video data analysis, again, very significant and easy use case. No surprise that overall adoption is highest in the data and analytics category. Audio analysis, another key piece. And the key takeaway here is that despite the familiarity of a lot of these segments in utilizing these tools and the efficiencies and efficacy that it brings, it's still early days. So as we track this over the next few years, and we will within GRIT, would fully expect this to rapidly change. Not a slow adoption, but to become absolutely mainstream, move into the 60, 70, 80% usage within the next year to 2. That's my prediction. We'll see if I'm right. We also looked at a different way of changes in adoption in this is framed as methodologies or methods, but these are analytically focused components. Again, same thing, looking at our segments, and the color coding indicates whether we've seen decrease or increase in usage. And if we look at that, again, the data analytics side are driving the significant change. But we're seeing certainly greater adoption in some things, attribution analytics, single source data in the buyer side, that's been significant. Big data analytics, the synthesis of multiple data sets and sources that are larger than just a bespoke data set within a survey or a research study. So again, key takeaway as we track this over time is that there already is adoption, but still relatively early. I would expect to see more significant green across this with larger increases overall as we go forward from here. And then on the same, we asked about the priorities for adoption. Now, this was around all methodologies, but what really jumped out, and I think it's relevant here, is to kind of frame up why we're talking about the AI and analytics. Was the key priority, particularly on the buyer side, both segments, was ease of interpreting and communicating results. Then there was cost, then there was speed. That ease of interpreting and communicating results gets to the heart of analytics. So I've been in this industry for almost 25 years now, and I remember going through printed out crosstabs and trying to find the significance and the number. And there is nothing easy in interpreting or communicating those results going through that process. Today, and for quite some time, right, through platforms like SPSS or Q or whatever the case may be, we can get to the answer quickly, and we can also get to the something visually, graphically, that allows us to communicate what's really important out of those findings. And that is only increasing now with AI. The companies you're going to see in this session and the next one are taking that idea of not just taking the process of analyzing data from days to hours to, in many cases now, minutes, but also building in the capabilities to visualize that so we can get to communicating the answer much more effectively to key stakeholders who ultimately are just looking for the answer. Process is absolutely important because that indicates that the answer is right. But if you're the CEO of the organization, let's say a multi-billion-dollar CPG company, ultimately what you need to know is what is the answer to the business question and what do we need to do based upon that answer. And you want to get that as fast and clearly as you can. So everything that we can do by utilizing these technology tools to get us to that point is going to benefit the ultimate key stakeholders within the organization. Our friends at Market Research Institute International did a study earlier in the year that I just thought was interesting here as well, where they were looking at AI opportunities and risks. Of course, the primary focus was on time savings and routine research tasks. That's the opportunities that everybody saw. Enhanced efficiency for things like data processing and analytics, and that's why I wanted to pull that out. But there's also potential bias in algorithms impacting research accuracy, which was significant, data privacy and security, increased dependence on AI leading to less human judgment, ethical concerns about AI-driven research practices. These were significant concerns as well. And those things stand. Nothing else that we're going to talk about today says that those are concerns. And the more we bring those concerns up, the more the suppliers that you're going to hear from factor that into their solutions. They'll be responsive to that. They'll address those concerns, and they'll make sure that the solutions they're bringing to market focus more on the positive opportunities that comes while mitigating against the negative AI risks. And last piece of grit, we ask for a few years, think of it as the day in the life. And effectively, we're looking at how folks spend their time. And we changed it up in the last year, maybe the last 2 years. And we've asked how people spend at least 10% of their time. Again, you're looking at it by segment across the top. Analyzing and processing data. Oh, that is a big chunk of time. So as we think about those things that we are kind of in the business, the more that we can create efficiencies in any of these categories, manage research projects, et cetera, that frees us up theoretically to spend more time working on the business, things that are more strategically important, moving things forward. So, when we think about the big picture of all of this, it is to help transition us from being task oriented to being solutions oriented, and give us more time to do the things that actually move the needle for the business. All right, so what are the benefits of usage? I'm not going to read all this off. Again, there's a leave behind from the deck. Most of this is kind of no-brainer stuff. Improved efficiency and scalability, enhanced insights and predictions, primarily because we can utilize different aspects of data, emerging quantitative and qualitative, or public data with proprietary data to merge those things together. Unstructured data analysis, we can do qualitative at scale now. We can ask questions about people's experience versus just using a Likert scale, which I think just gives us a much more depth of understanding. Personalized recommendations, that may be more on the outcome side of things, but I think that it's important. That is certainly what brands are looking for. And the more that we can utilize data to connect those things together for them, then the better. Automated segmentation and clustering. I'm sure many of you have gone through the pain of creating clusters and looking at latent class analysis, et cetera, to get to segmentation, and those things can be done really instantaneously at this point, based upon the right level of prompts. Real-time monitoring, improved decision making, cost savings and efficiency, which is a huge one, and ultimately, if you're whether you're on the supplier side or the buyer side, competitive advantage. Information is an asset that you can leverage to create more value within the business. It is competitive advantage. So that's why all of this is important, and those are the key benefits. And I'm trying to go to the next slide. And it's not wanting to do that. I don't know why. Let me try one more thing. Well, okay, so I'm going to wing it. There's 2 more slides, but I'm not going to waste your time doing this. What we get into next is the trade-offs, things that you need to consider in making these decisions, and they are significant. There are going to be obviously the benefits that we've just talked about, but there are cost implications. And oh, there we go. I don't know if Bridget did that in the background or not, but it finally worked. So speed and scalability, there's good things and bad things about that. So I do not think we should ever get to the point where speed is that we sacrifice quality for speed. So if we're going to rely on these tools, and I think that we should rely on them to a great extent, we do need to make sure they're right and they're good. So let's recognize that. The models have to be proven. We have to test them. We have to make sure that they're accurate. Pattern recognition, that is something that humans inherently do. But the reality is that AI can do that at scale and can recognize patterns in a different way. They are predictive algorithms, LLMs specifically. That is what they do. So they recognize patterns and they predict what the outcome is going to be, and that's how they generate what they generate. So there's really some components there that are great, but we don't want to sacrifice humans either. Flexibility, adaptability, interpretability, and explainability. Now this really kind of gets into software. Here's the thing, all AI systems are inherently black boxes right now. And totally get that in terms of business IP, but we want to make sure that as that is happening, there is some level of transparency so we can look at interoperability and interpretability to explain what's happening. I've heard from multiple folks in kind of the AI world, right? The chat GPTs and those folks, the scientists say, we don't really know how it does what it does, which is kind of a scary thing. We need to get past that. We need to understand how it does what it does. And be able to explain that so we know that we're getting the right answer. There are significant data requirements for these things to work. So they're called large language models for a reason. They are utilizing just tons and tons and tons of data as training sets to be able to produce what they need to produce. So that is significant. When we're dealing with market research data, a bespoke project, it may be more appropriate to do things kind of the old-fashioned way with the software that we currently have that's non-AI driven. It's going to depend upon how much available information exists for the models to be trained on. There's cost infrastructure, and there is the issue of bias and fairness. We've all seen examples that bias can be introduced into LLMs. All of the large existing models have some garbage in, garbage out. Let's recognize that. That can impact things, so we need to make sure that we're testing against that. And then finally, looking at evaluating solutions. So the companies that you're going to see from today. Data quality and availability. Obviously, always has to be a major consideration. The overall technological capabilities of the company. Is it two guys in a truck? Or is there significant infrastructure and proven technology that they're building off of? You got to make sure it aligns with the business objectives. Again, interpretability and explainability. That transparency is going to be critical, especially if you're in really specific fields where the stakes are pretty high, like let's say healthcare. Ethical considerations. There is still a lot to be worked out as far as data provenance and ownership. When it comes to AI and specifically in AI training models, it's not the same as I did a survey, people opted in. But if you're in the EU, for instance, does that mean they opted in that data can be used to train a model? Maybe, maybe not. Those are questions that have to be addressed. Change management, user adoption, always an issue. So we could do a lot of things today that we may not see in widespread adoption for another 2 to 3 years. Because folks just are resistant to change. I'm certainly one of those. Scalability and maintenance, and then vendor selection and partnership. Somebody that you jive with, right? Someone that you feel connected to, that they deliver what they've promised, and you feel that they're trustworthy and reliable. All those are considerations. So it's not a one size fits all. This is going to change. These are just a few of the considerations. We'll dive into some deeper aspects of this in part 2, but I think this is a good foundation as you listen to the rest of this Insights Tech Showcase and what all of these fantastic companies are bringing to the table. Give them due consideration, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.